Recovering Out Loud podcast. I'm your host, Charles Van Loucks. Today, I'd like to talk about meetings. I think meetings can be a really great tool, but when I was getting clean almost 10 years ago, that was kind of like the main tool, more or less, right? It was, at least in my experience, it was kind of proposed to me as go to meetings and work a set of steps, and that's the only option, right? One size fits all type of thing. And I think that felt kind of limiting. I think that for a lot of people that left them feeling like, hey, if I'm not comfortable in this format or this type of situation, what do I do? Right. And so I wanted to do an episode about meetings and kind of touch on the variety, right? And how there's a lot of different, it's grown a lot, and there's a lot of different meetings today that can help in all kinds of different situations. So the OG, right? Alcoholics Anonymous started way back in the day. And I think that for that one, it's, by the way, you don't have, just because it's Alcoholics Anonymous, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to only be an alcoholic to go there. Now, some meetings prefer that you call yourself an alcoholic even if you're a drug addict, right? Which, I mean, it's whatever, it's okay, right? You can say that. At the end of the day, the important thing is the support and getting the message and all of that, right? Being able to get stuff off your chest, opening up, finding a community. Um, so for me, I found, I dabbled in many different meetings, right? I started with AA, and I think I got some good stuff out of there for sure. And I found that I had to keep my recovery fresh. If I ever felt like it started to get stagnant or anything like that, I would switch up meetings within a fellowship, or I would switch fellowships as a whole. So I started out in AA, and AA had a lot of really cool, like, young people's meetings, and they did a lot of, cool, like, candlelit meetings where, in my early recovery, I found it easier to share in a situation like that, without everyone, like, staring at me while I share and stuff. But that was just my own anxiety in my mind. It's a perfectly comfortable situation for sure. But, I think having a variety in that sense is helpful, right? AA also, and other fellowships have these too, but, they also have like speaker meetings as well, which is interesting. So typically you'll have an old timer, right? A person with more time, more clean and sober time under their belt, who will tell their story, and it'll kind of be a more of like a, I don't know, them talking about their story, more than just individual sharing kind of thing. So there's a lot of different formats. And I think kind of picking which of these is helpful for where you're at can be a really good place to start with meetings. Because the reality is, first off, we don't want to isolate. So forcing ourselves to get out of the house and go to a meeting can be really helpful for sure. There's, being able to, even if you sit there and you don't share, that's okay too. Just like the way that I would do it is I would sit there, and if I didn't feel like sharing, I would try to get out of my own head and out of my own situation and my own, internal hamster wheel of anxious thought, that whole thing. And I would try to feel some empathy for the other person, right? So whoever was sharing, I would make sure that I gave them the respect of paying attention, right? So I wasn't, on my phone or didn't have an earbud in or anything like that, right? Because I'm there for a reason. Um, but I would make sure that, I'm looking at them, I'm paying attention, I'm hearing what they're saying, I'm feeling what they're saying, right? I'm trying to put myself in their shoes of what they're going through. And that does a few things. Like I mentioned, empathy. It also gets me out of my own head, right? It gets me thinking about other people. It gets me into a grander scheme of things kind of feel to the world. So I think it can be really helpful for that. And then when you start sharing, I think that it's immensely helpful for that too, because the reality is, I remember I went on a men's retreat where we would have little mini meetings and all that. And we played this game to make people feel comfortable, but essentially it was, you would share some of your, deep, dark secrets kind of thing, similar to what you would share in a meeting, right? And I remember each person chose like their deepest, darkest secret on this men's retreat. And if you had also gone through that, you would walk to a nearby circle, and it's kind of a communal sort of thing. Anyway, there wasn't a single topic that another person didn't walk on, meaning they had all experienced them, right? And at the end of the day, that makes the other person who's sharing that feel more comfortable, right? Like they're not the only one, that there's other people who've been through that, And I've experienced the same thing in meetings too, because the fact is, we're only as sick as our secrets, right? When we decide to make the life altering choice to get clean and sober and get into recovery and all that, we have to be all in, and part of that is getting all of that dark old life stuff off of our chest, right? We got to open up to whoever we want. It doesn't have to be a specific person. It doesn't have to be in a meeting with a bunch of other people. It can be whatever format you want. The important thing is that you get those things off your chest, right? Because they're sitting there weighing us down, right? Even if we haven't thought about them in years, right? Just because we ignore them doesn't mean they go away, right? And those are the things that keep us stuck. Those are the things that keep us seeing the world in a negative, dark kind of way, right? Those are the things that keep us seeing ourselves as a negative kind of situation, and beating ourselves up for everything and this and that. So it's definitely an important part of this whole thing. But that's kind of where the candlelight meeting came in for me. I remember that was one of the first times where I felt comfortable, right? Because they turned down the lights. Ooh, it was all romantic. And they had like these candles lit, and it was really cool. And it was a little bit more of a comfortable kind of way to share. And yeah, it was more comfortable for me in that moment to get some of those things off my chest. But the thing is, whatever outlet you choose, right? Whether it's meetings or a coach or just a sponsor, or, whatever it is, right? Therapy, whatever tool or outlet relates to you is fine. And I just wanted to bring up meetings specifically because in my experience, it had been, painted as a one size fits all. You got to do meetings. That's it, right? And definitely not the case, but I wanted to, make a case for meetings because I think there is a lot of really good support and a lot of really good things you can get out of there too. Because, the other side of it for myself was, getting to a place where I was kind of starting over socially as well, and before and especially after a meeting was a really good time to meet new people, right? Who are like minded. Go have dinner with them after the meeting or go get coffee or, whatever it was. And, that turned into finding a home group, which was really helpful. And a home group is just it's a reoccurring meeting that you attend regularly, and it has, usually the same kind of core group of people who attend regularly. And kind of the point there is accountability. It's support, it's community, all those things working together to kind of help each other stay clean and sober. And it can be helpful because there are absolutely days where, I didn't want to go to a meeting. It was snowing out, it was cold, I was tired, whatever it was, right? But having that home group member to hold me accountable and say, hey man, what's going on? You coming to the meeting? I'd be like, no, I'm tired. Like, I'll come pick you up. I'll get you a cup of coffee. I'll come pick you up. Right. So just kind of like helping make that barrier a little easier. And I would also go as far as to say that virtual meetings, can also be a really helpful tool, I think, right? Because even though it's not necessarily in person, so you're not necessarily getting the same community and the same this and that, whatever, I think virtual can still be really helpful because, if there's a day where you're, you know, kind of on the edge, right? Um, any kind of support, right? Any kind of outlet to share what's going on and get that stuff off your chest is helpful. So if you gravitate towards online meetings, go for it. Whatever that looks like for you. And I think that that's a good segue into the different kinds of meetings too. So I spoke about Alcoholics Anonymous, right? The old school, big book, that whole thing, right? It's great. There's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of knowledge. And then there's others, right? There's Narcotics Anonymous. So that one's more of, just drugs in general, and then they have drug specific ones too, right? Like there's Cocaine Anonymous, there's Crystal Meth Anonymous, there's Heroin Anonymous, there's Adult Children of Alcoholics, right? Now that's a little bit of a different one. And I think for that, so that one is, um, you don't even necessarily have to be in recovery for that one, because that one is all about kind of growing up and how you were raised, and whether it was as a member of an alcoholic household and you going through that, not being the alcoholic in that situation, right? Or just a dysfunctional family in general, all those situations, whatever it was for you, they all have some lasting impressions, right? Some good, some not so good, right? And the thing that I found interesting about ACA was it kind of helped to paint a more, full picture, right? In terms of like, HA and NA and all that, those kinds of meetings, they were very much about, character defects and, working a set of steps and becoming better people and all that. And it was almost like ACA was the prequel to that, right? It was the backstory. It was, how did we get to this place somewhat, right? And I think diving into some of that stuff can be, really helpful and interesting for sure. Um, because I've definitely had some ACA stuff come up for me, years and years and years and years after, when I thought I had really done a lot of work around a lot of that stuff, right? But it wasn't a bad thing that it came up though, right? Because one of the gifts of recovery, in my opinion, is being able to put a name to what's happening, right? So instead of just, feeling a certain way with a social situation or around certain people or whatever, now I can say, oh, no, 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 that's an ACA thing. Okay, cool. I need to go work a set of steps there, right? I need to go share in those meetings. I need to hear other people's, experience, strength, and hope, right? That kind of stuff. So for me, it's very much about kind of figuring out where I'm at today, right? And today, what's the most helpful tool, right? Am I having some cravings, right? Do I need to go share at an HA meeting? Do I need to find a sponsor? Do I need to start getting into some step work, right? By the way, let me just touch on step work real quick too, because, only the first part has anything to do with drugs and alcohol, right? The entire rest of the set of steps is about us and our inventory and making amends with people that we've done wrong to and all kinds of stuff, and going through a few different sets of steps now for myself, it's been it's been really interesting just to see kind of a different side of myself. I think that it would have been difficult for me to learn those things about myself if I hadn't done that work around it. And same thing with the ACA steps. Um, so I think it can be a really, really helpful tool, and the amends process can begin kind of rebuilding some trust, with family, spouses, friends, whomever. So I think it's a really good, important, um, important place to focus. But like I've heard some people in the past talk about that, they kind of gravitate away from meetings as a whole because they feel triggered in those situations and everything. So maybe that particular type of meeting isn't the best option, right? Maybe it's more about ACA where they don't even talk about drugs and alcohol, right? But it's still more of a, whole life, whole body kind of approach, and, seeing what things trigger us. And, because the reality is, I mean, the using and the drinking is only surface level, right? There's always roots. There's always other reasons why we do all that stuff, So diving into that side of things can be really helpful for sure. And again, kind of putting a name to some of those things so that we can, do work around it. And that's how we regain stability in our life, in my opinion, right? Is being able to locate these areas of instability in our life, right? Relationship, work, whatever it is, right? And then actually do work in those areas, whether it's therapy or finding a new job or couples counseling, or whatever it is, right? We can always improve these different areas, and I think that that's what gets us back to that, permanent sense of relief that we can get in long-term recovery. It's because we've done the work. It's because we've addressed all the things that scared us in life, right? That held us back, and everything. So, I encourage you to look into some different types of meetings, and like other people have talked about, the higher power part, or God, or whatever you want to call them, right? Some people don't relate to that either. They don't want to talk about that part. So they have smart recovery, which essentially removes the higher power element totally, So it's very much kind of a, customized sort of approach now, which is really cool. And for that matter, if you do believe in God and that's a big part of your life, they have Celebrate Recovery, which is, diving deeper into, God and higher power, and how it kind of connects a lot of things. So um, there isn't a one size fits all. There's a lot of different tools, a lot of different types of meetings. There's a lot of different types of support, and I think it's just about trying some. You know, I think that, if I can give one piece of advice that's gotten me, knock on wood, to 10 years in February with no relapses, my piece of advice would be to, remain open minded, remain teachable, listen to others, take their advice, right? Now, here's the thing, some of their advice might not fit you. That's okay. If you try that one piece and it doesn't work, there's going to be another piece that does. Just keep trying. All right, keep trying. There's going to be something that works for you. There's going to be something that helps. It's just about finding that right mixture for you, right? Do I need therapy, right? Am I depressed? Do I need some depression medication, right? Do I need, ACA meetings? Do I need HA meetings? Do I need, wilderness? Do I need to go be out in nature? Do I need to learn how to meditate? Like, I mean, there's so many different ways to go about all this, Sometimes people just need a new social group. Sometimes that can be super helpful by itself, right? Like going and checking out Colorado Artists in Recovery, make some new friends, go check out Meetup. They have, just regular groups. They have sober specific groups for anything you can think of, So remain open minded, try some things, see what helps, because the thing is, nothing changes if nothing changes in our lives, right? And I think having the ability to be courageous and try new things and get out of our comfort zone, because we can get comfortable in some pretty weird, chaotic stuff. So, being comfortable in your situation is not always the best thing. So, open up to the world, right? There's a lot that we, shut ourselves out from for a long time. So go out and experience some of that. All right. And if you have any questions about, you know, meetings or anything, post them as a comment, or as usual, I have my email listed in the description. And yeah, let me know what's on your mind. So thank you, and look forward to the next one. Take care.